Emotional energy vibrates. It operates at a frequency and it has its own emotional wave, literally. So if you're familiar with the energy or the science of vibrations, you know that vibrations travel in waves, sine waves. My joke is always, if you are a vibrational being. If you go to the hospital and they hook you up to the EKG and nothing's happening, they don't get a blip on the little screen, you're not vibrating, and then you're consequently dead, right? So we want to have vibrations. Vibrations are good. It's the indication that we are alive. And in fact, scientists can now actually measure the vibrational frequency of the universe. And what they've discovered is the universe itself, the entire little universe that we live in, actually has a pulse and a sine wave. So our universe is alive and its heart is beating. Thank God, right? So emotions travel in waves. You have highs and you have lows. You have ups and you have downs. So you'll see on this particular graph here, you'll see there are undulations in the waves. All right. You'll also see in this graph, if you look down the middle where the 0 is, there's a baseline in this wave. The median range between these waves is called the baseline. Now, before I can talk to you about what to do with your emotional energy and how to work with it correctly, I have to shift gears a little bit and give you a little bit of foundation on what you can do to really manage your emotional energy well so that it doesn't kick your behind and it doesn't leave you depressed and it doesn't feel like it's struggling at all. So when you are working with your emotional energy, when you're not working with emotions correctly, when you have a meaning attached to those emotions that isn't vital and dynamic, that isn't helping you work with that energy in a way that's constructive and empowering and creative and juicy, it can actually cause you to look at your emotions with a negative perspective. And I'm going to explain to you in just a minute why that can oftentimes really impact us and hurt us and actually cause us to experience struggles with emotional energy that can not only impact our emotional process, but also can cause us to manifest the negative implications of emotional struggles in our physical body. If you want to have a different experience with your emotional energy and you want to have a healthy, dynamic, creative experience with your emotional energy, you have to define for yourself a new meaning and a new understanding of what that emotional energy is really all about. And let me explain to you why this is important, and then we'll go back to looking at how can you do this in a practical way. Human design has a component to it that is about quantum physics. This doesn't have to be even about human design. You can completely take the human design out of this part of this presentation and just listen to it from the context of your human experience. What we know from quantum physics is this. Quantum physics can only measure movement or location individually, not at the same time. So what we understand is that emotions are energy. They are energy in motion, literally. They are vibrational, and we don't know this yet, but it's quite possible at a certain point in time that we are going to discover that there's quantum movement associated with emotions. Emotions create and stimulate a whole range of physiological responses in the body. Those responses are actually triggered by photons, by light, which is a subatomic particle. The emotions that we are experiencing are triggered by quantum particles. So there's a quantum physics component to this emotional energy. You can only measure movement or location of quantum particles. If you're looking at a photon, let's say, which is a small particle of light, you can only measure the movement of the photon or the location of the photon. The minute you start measuring where that photon is located, you have to stop, or you can only measure the location, not the movement. It's kind of like this. The analogy that I like to look at is, or talk about, is if you've ever stood on a stool and had your grandma pin or hem your dress, if you're wiggling and you're wiggling away and the pins are sticking you, it's very difficult for your grandmother to locate the source of the hem, right? The minute you stop moving, then your grandmother can locate where the hem should be and pin you correctly, all right? The minute you start measuring location is the minute, movement contains potential, all right? Location is manifestation. So our emotional experience has a whole lot of fluidity and potential to it. When we go back and we talk about the emotional wave, it's a moving piece. Okay? The emotional movement is fluid and it has movement to it. The minute we start assigning a meaning to our emotional experience is the minute we start moving from potential to location. And the minute we start to give it meaning, we actually begin to manifest the meaning of that emotion in our outer reality. Let's keep it simple. Here's some thoughts. Your consciousness actually mediates between mind and matter. All right? So consciousness, your state of being is actually mediating between your mind and your physical body. What maintains the parallel function of the mind and the brain? Consciousness. Therefore, your mind, and the meaning that you derive from your experience is vital for what you end up manifesting or what you end up creating in your reality. What that also means is that what you create and the meaning you assign it is going to be conditioned by your life experiences, or what we say in human design, your conditioning field. So everything you've experienced in life, let's keep this simple. Everything that you've experienced in life, all the pain that you've had, all the joy that you've had, all the trauma that you've had, all the excitement that you've had, the experiences that you had growing up, your genetics, everything about what is influencing your life right now, the sum total of all the choices that you made comprises what we call your conditioning field. If you want to create something different in your life, you have to give it a new meaning, and you have to align that meaning with what you really want to be experiencing. And of course, and this is the most important piece of it, when you observe something, when you look at something, and scientists know this, when we start to measure criteria, when we start to do any kind of a scientific study, when we observe it, it begins to change. Let's talk about, what does that mean? What does that mean in the context of emotional health and wellness? Our perception of the world and the meaning determines what we create. To change our reality or to change your emotional experience, you have to change the meaning you ascribe to it. And that's where real healing happens. So let's go back to our chart. To heal your emotions, you have to change, and you have to give your emotions a new meaning and new understandings.